I see you're at some NHLPA events, looking like you're having just a hell of a time. Um, so you're with Ty, and here's my first question for you: do you think that we see
Yeah.
Tom Brady at a Leafs game this year?
I told Ty that day we did the NHL alumni
Yeah,
tournament up in Coppenwood that if I don't see Brady, Wahlberg at once a week
once a
at
week.
Scotiabank Arena, oh
Once a
yeah,
week.
like if
Wow.
it's exactly if
Hmm.
I don't see at least three of his best friends celebrities, um, you know, uh, no, I'm not going to have any time for him.
Hmm.
So
This is
he knows
interesting.
the alumni box has to go to another level now that
Yeah.
Ty's got
Back.
such famous friends.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You're the king of the alumni box in terms of hobnobbing with celebrities, right? Like we have you with Tim Cook on record. We have you with Bill Burr on record. Do we have you with Ryan Reynolds? Was that one of them? I can't even.
No,
Honestly,
no,
I don't
no.
know who. I know we have the pictures of you and Rafa Nadal just hanging out and
Yeah,
just
I'm sneaky.
yeah.
I'm sneaky celebrity guy.
Yeah, bro, it's not sneaky anymore. You are the celebrity guy. And that's the thing. Is Ty going to show up and start challenging you for who sits at the very front of the box with the top A celebrity? Like this is a
Yeah,
big,
no, no, no,
big
no.
swivel in the alumni box.
Listen, we're knocking on our 60s, but he will still put me in a headlock. So I give it to Ty. Ty is the leader of the Leaf alumni box from here on in.
Hmm. So I will say this, man. The thing that I'm most excited about with Max is it's a guy who really does want to be here and who's wanted to be here for a while, right? And this has felt like something missing from what the Leafs have had. And it was kind of even I got to admit, it was a little tough to swallow Ryan O'Reilly's departure simply because you looked at it and the stuff came out about the limelight and whether or not he liked playing in the city and it was different. You go, man, when you first showed up here, people thought like you really wanted it. And there was Foligno. When he came in, he desperately wanted to be a Leaf. He put on his dad's old hat. And that wasn't a situation where he wanted to leave. That was one where he ended up getting priced out. He just ended up getting too good of a deal with Boston. But it's nice to have a guy who not even not even having played with this team, put his money where his mouth was and said, "Yeah, I'll take less than what the market is going to offer me. I want to be a Toronto Maple Leaf," making statements about wanting to be here long term. And I wonder if you think that any of that culture can shift from anybody other than Auston Matthews, because we're just like now we're into the middle of July, Kipper, and I'm bothering you when you're supposed to be on the course. I thought that this was supposed to be, over and done with a month ago. And we're still sitting here going, well, when is the top guy going to sign the big money deal that gives us a picture of what
Yeah,
everything else is supposed to look like culture wise?
yeah. Well, listen, just to go back on Max and his
Yeah.
decision, and I lived through it personally as a guy that was born and raised in Toronto and got to
Yeah.
put that uniform on, and it's at the end of the day, it's to each his own. Whatever you want to get out of it. Some people love the limelight. Some people think they like it, and then they find out they don't like it. I mean, there's no right or wrong. Sometimes there are people that I've talked to that really got offended with Ryan O'Reilly not wanting to be a Leaf. And it's
Mm,
like, okay, but until you've worn those skates in that situation and you've dealt with the things on and off the ice, I mean, you can't really sit there and say, he's right or he's wrong. Like I said, it's such a personal preferential on whether or not this works for you, that this environment works for you or not. In Max's case, he was born and raised in this environment.
mhm.
He's watched it with his dad. He knows the pros, he knows the cons of being a Toronto Maple Leaf, or should I say the challenges of being a Leaf.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, he's been around the league long enough to know exactly what he's getting himself into on this commitment. And as much as we can sit there and convince people how great it is to be a Leaf, or what a privilege and honor, at the end of the day, hey Max, go out there and get the job done.
Mhm.
Like, there is nothing better than than getting the job done as a Toronto Maple Leaf, because if you don't, as much as you want to tell people how much you love it here or want to be here or the honor or the privilege, it doesn't matter. It
Hmm.
just matters if you go out there and get the job done. And Max knows it. He's at it. He's mature enough. He's been around. He's played in uh, some of the toughest markets ever in Montreal, and he knows he's going to have to go out there. He's going to probably contribute 15 goals, maybe 40, 50 points, and then bring attitude and edge to the team that they've been sorely missing. If he can do that,
Hmm.
then he's got a tremendous opportunity to end, hopefully his career in Toronto.
Hmm.
And as far as your frustration with Matthews and you know the contracts with maybe Nylander, and again, what's the holdup? And to each his own. If someone sits there and says that, I don't care about what this looks like. I deserve my money. I'm the best player, or you guys use me as the best player. I'm gonna go get my money. It's not necessarily works from Auston Matthews. What's the delay? Is he's trying to squeeze out more money, more term, less term, whatever works for you? That is your right as a player to negotiate how you feel is best for you or your family.
Yeah, that's fine. He can negotiate however he wants, and the Nylander one
Yeah.
seems a little bit more clear. What I'm more confused by when it comes to the Matthews stuff is Dubas departs. Like this is let's do the Matthews timeline. Dubas departs, and there's a little bit of smoke of, hey, maybe now Matthews doesn't want to be back. He needs to hear what Tree Living's pitch is, and then
Which I thought was BS.
yeah, of course, man. This is just I'm just doing the public facing optics. So he needs to hear what Trey Living's pitch is about the organization, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, Trey Living gets the pitch to the guys, him and Shanahan, and then a couple of the players just fairly recently even go sort of public with, yeah, Trey Living gave us these assurances about having faith in us and skill and blah, blah. This goes a long way, and we all want to be here. Then reporting starts to come out from just about everywhere that, hey, Matthews and the Leafs, they're close. And it's kind of come down to maybe what the term is. It's going to be a shorter contract. It's going to be a number that looks pretty significant to people. But these two parties are basically on the goal line. And this is before July 1st, right? July 1st happens. We start seeing the signings. And then the Matthews story sort of sneaks away because Nylander starts taking all the press clippings, which again makes sense because Nylander's the guy that sat out. Nylander's the guy where the reports are that there's real division there, that he wants more than what guys that are similar to him are making on the market. I still feel the same way I did the first time around with all these guys, which is the top guy has to set the number and has to set the priority. Like it goes even to the Domi thing where you say, all right, he's going to bring some attitude, or they love using snot right now. I've never heard snot so much in my, like, this is now the word is that the Leafs snot. It's all about snot. Anyway, I just have I have a hard time believing that you're ever going to be able to get to the negotiating table with a guy like Nylander or a guy like Marner in a reasonable way until you know what the Matthews number is. And so, like, that's my question is when do
Well,
we start to see movement here? Like, I know you said it's his right, but now we're in the middle of summer. He's going to be back in Arizona. He's going to be on the golf course. He wants to go to probably UFC
yeah.
events or Bieber's house or whatever. Like, when does the next domino happen here?
Well, it's when Matthews and his agent Judd decide, and I don't know whether we're in a blinking contest or not between Nylander or Matthews or who needs to go first. But if I'm Auston Matthews, I'm not holding my breath on Nylander's contract getting done at all at any time this summer.
No.
So, how far does Matthews want to go into the season now without a contract? And if it is as close as everybody's reporting, and everybody that I've talked to says it's a 13.5 AAV, then what is the term? Is it 6 years, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years? That
Mm.
I think. I think for me, uh, the biggest decision right now, which I think Austin can't decide on, or they haven't made a final decision, is how many years will what we believe is a 13.5 AAV last. And it's important. It's an important decision because the majority of the stars out there, they're signing, they're committing 7 or 8 years, and I think it's it's going to set up a little bit of the climate around his contract
Mm,
on whether or not people buy in that this is a good thing or a bad thing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He signs a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal. Everybody's sitting there going, "Well, he's
mhm,
just waiting for more money down the road, and this isn't a real commitment." And he's going to have to deal with all of that. So it is really important, I think, that he gets this right, so he can move forward without people turning around right away and saying, "Hey, all he cares about is just getting richer when the cap goes up."
mhm. Man, I gotta tell you, there's no scenario. I don't care. He could make $5 million. If it was a 2-year commit, that's a nightmare. Like that's not going to cut it here. I was
Listen,
going to say if he's
the
13-5
the
though on a 5-year
yeah,
term, I think that's a win for everybody involved. Like then he turns 30 years old. It's cap up. It's one more
yeah,
big money deal. And yeah, he still ends up
yeah.
being, one of the richest players to ever play the game, maybe the richest after this thing's all said and done. So I don't know. So you really think that it could come down to like that few years? Because it always felt like 5 was the kind of maximum number that you were going to lock down a guy like this for.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he flirts with anything lower than 5 years
Hmm.
in terms of having people really question, where his heart is, or where the money is, or what's important to him. Getting out of town when he can still hit a big contract, all of that will
Hmm.
come into play. And the Leafs are dealing with a Kyle Dubas 5-year contract that is hurting the team right now,
Hmm.
no question. And I back then you thought 5 years is a long time, and it ended up being a very short time because that one's painted uh, that contract alone may be the reason why you're going to lose Nylander,
Hmm.
or not have the ability to re-sign Nylander. Timing of these contracts expiring is as important as the AAV, or you know, um, no question about that. And right now, Tree Living's behind the 8 ball with Nylander and Matthews.
Hmm. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'll just say I was on the right side of history of this. I took a lot of crap when when these contracts first came down the pipe, and I went, these are ridiculous term. And people were like, this is the modern contract, and this is how things are going, and blah blah
Yeah,
blah blah blah, and this is fine, and it's 5 years, and now we're all sitting here, and I was like, I told us so. this is
yeah.
not this is not ideal. And you're right. This isn't going to end up
Right.
being like
Listen, go back to McDavid. McDavid
I
was the
know.
best player on the planet. So when he signed his extension, Edmonton would have nothing to do with anything less than 8 years.
Mm,
And right now they're lucky. Can you imagine if Edmonton was in a situation where he signed a 5 or 6 year deal? The panic in Edmonton today if
mhm,
that extension was anything less than 8 years.
mhm. So what do you think the most likely outcome is now with Nylander? Because it went from, hey, these negotiations are bad and he could get traded. And then, you start to see trade packages that happen for good players. And then all of a sudden, Carlson's name starts coming up. And I thought, okay, at this point, I don't really see how that ends up working given how your defense pairings break down, like who ends up going out the door. And the smoke now seems to be more and more, and again, I don't know who this has come from. I know Nylander's back in Sweden, but there's more and more buzz about letting Nylander just play it out, which I think I'm a little surprised by given who the general manager is now, right? The guy that just let Johnny
Yeah,
Gaudreau walk, someone who said that he
yeah.
wouldn't go through a situation like that again or that he learned from that situation, given what the Leafs have in their system and kind of their depth and the implication of letting a guy like Nylander just walk for nothing for one Stanley Cup year, it feels awkward to me. It feels like a pretty heavy pivot. But this seems to be like for you. What do you think happens here? Like what happens with this contract and this player?
I think he's gonna go. I think he's gonna go to training camp without an extension. That's what I think. And it's not like you have a ton of choices if you're Brad Tree Living. I don't think this is the climate right now for a trade, and I don't think the climate will change between now and September. If he was to trade Nylander now, he would not get value back that Leaf fans would accept. I'm
Mm.
telling you right now, it's just when we're talking about uh, a climate that is still conducive to a stranglehold of a salary cap. There's not there's not a lot of teams that could could trade for him and feel like they're going to give up a sufficient amount of future. And if it is, it would be a team that isn't up against the cap. And if it's a team that's isn't up against the cap, why do I want to give away three of my major pieces when I can get him for free next July?
Mm.
So I don't see a scenario where there's a trade out there anytime soon that would make Leaf fans happy.
So most realistic outcome is that he just plays out this season and then walks at the end of the year.
Well, I think if you're the Leafs and you watched Pasternak go through it with Boston and then find out that he signed when? When did he sign?
Yeah, like
February,
yeah, right.
March?
Yeah, right at the end of the year.
Is that your hope that you could start the season like Pasternak did in Boston without a contract and then work your way through it and then finally hit a number that you can live with? That
Mm.
might be more of a scenario that they can hope for than having a knee-jerk reaction to the fact that you know he's asking for 10-5 right now or 11 and you're offering 8 or 8.5.
The Pasternak one, though, you at least had a history of getting deals done with your stars that were friendlier ones. And yeah, they pushed it and it got a little hairy. And I don't know. It never felt realistic like that he was going to leave, especially given, what Marchand's age was and Bergeron's future and the fact that Boston just needed him to still be the face of their franchise and that they could just kind of figure out the pieces around it. Nylander does feel different in the sense of if he wants 10, then you keep pushing into the season, he's only going to gain more and more leverage on you. And so I would have to think that, yeah, to me anyways, the smarter outcome would be, sure, of course you're exploring a trade in the offseason. You're still calling teams on them. You're asking for what offers might be out there. But yeah, you let it go into the season, but with the idea of you might actually trade him at the deadline. Like you could make a really splashy move where something comes back if you don't know by then that you're trying to do something that helps you win now that maybe isn't all that good in terms of like you're never going to win this trade with a star player. It just feels really, really difficult to
Yes.
believe that's ever going to happen anyways. But if I'm Brad Treliving, I can't have the scenario where you get bounced in the first or second round again, and then Nylander packs his bags and goes to a different market, and you're left staring around going, wait, so now we've only got Matthews on another short contract. We got to do a new deal with Marner. Tavares is aging out of this thing, and what do we have in the system? One player, Matthew Nyes, like, not good enough. You got to turn him into something at some point.
Yeah, you're right, and all of those scenarios come into play. That the culture was much different when it came to players signing in Boston than in Toronto. You're not wrong on any of that,
Mm.
but you also are in a position now where JD, you look at the hockey club right now and you go as is.
Hmm.
People want to crap all over the blue line. As is, they're good enough to
They're
make the
good.
playoffs.
Yep.
Okay, they're good.
No
They're
question.
good already. So you're fine.
Hmm.
So you start with Nylander. You go in with the defense that you have now,
Mm.
and you just get to a point where you're now coming towards February or March, and you know the blue line's good enough to get you in the playoffs. What we do know almost for a fact that it ain't good enough to win in the playoffs.
No.
So maybe, just maybe by then, if you can't get a deal done with Nylander, then that's your major piece to go get help on the blue line at the trade deadline
Hmm.
to take another run at the playoffs with a different look. He can provide that different look. Even if you traded him at the deadline, he will bring in very good pieces to help you on that blue line. And again, it's the best possibly of a very, very tough situation. If Nylander feels like he can get 10.5 or 11 next year on the open market, then he should let them know now so they can start making decisions.
See, the only thing that scares me too about the idea of letting guys walk into the season with these expiring deals is the fear of kind of like that mercenary culture, right? I think that a guy like Nylander, who's going to be in a contract year, is going to try to outperform it, prove everybody wrong, score a bunch of goals, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't think he's going to dog it. But it does. This is why the Matthews contract, when you're talking about, hey, the fewer the years, the scarier to me it gets. You need to have the commitment from him. You need to have that kind of thing at the top because you've got Tyler Bertuzzi on that 1-year deal. You've got Max, who says he wants to be here. That's awesome, but still, it is a 1-year deal. And then you're going through Klingberg, same thing, mercenary kind of guy. TJ Brody's going to be on the final, like the end of his contract. Mark Giordano, I don't know what his future is going to be like, but that's the same thing. Marner's going to have to deal with something in the offseason. To me, the scary part of that, not having Matthews and Nylander locked up to some term or knowing what your future looks like, at least with those guys, is everyone on your team is in a state of flux. And so I guess this is an outsider's opinion on this. I don't know. Do you think that's actually a thing? You think that that's something that could creep in for a team like that where, yeah, everybody's on a short-term deal or everybody's looking around and saying, hey, I'm either gone at the end of this year or I'm gone in 2?
Honest to God, I think that's not just a Leaf scenario, but that's probably the majority of the league right now, and what your philosophy is on 8-year deals, and whether or not players want to start betting on themselves so they can bring their salaries up. And it's I don't know if that's the best thing for the Leaf gift shop when it comes to buying jerseys. You're gonna have to get that Velcro on the
Nice.
letters so you can peel them all and off
Yeah.
because no one's willing to stick around long enough. But hey, this is salary cap at its finest here, and it's. I feel for the players because we knew all along it was going to be okay. Either I'm going to get paid less and look like a great team guy, or I'm going to get paid more, or my true value and look like a greedy bastard.
Yeah.
So pick your poison,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Pick your poison.
The
And
worst part is I would
it's not
totally
a
be
Leaf thing.
greedy. I'd be the greedy
It
bastard 100%.
it's not a Leaf thing. It's a
Uh-huh.
league-wide issue on philosophy and how you want your
Uh-huh.
turnover and what the fans will accept, not accept. Like, in 2 or 3 years, if Matthews and Nylander are gone, I mean, you're going to jack up the ticket prices another 10, 12%. Are they going to pay?
Hey,
Those
Kipper.
are all tough,
Yeah.
tough decisions. Tough decisions.
Were Leafs tickets cheap before those guys got here? I thought because I remember being broke and going a Leafs game to my friends. Who do you know?
Yeah.
Like, who are your friends? Who is
Yeah.
your father? What does he do? What
You
company does
know.
he work for? Like, no. I don't think the ticket prices are ever going down. Okay, so I know you got to run. So last thing quickly here, you said it. You're going into the season with these blue line pairings because, like, the guy I keep circling is. Man, Trey Living already walked off of TJ Brody. Like, they were down to trade him his final year. They let him walk to free agency. They didn't really worry about it. He was in trade rumors before. He wasn't a guy that he backed. He did look like a guy that lost the step in the postseason last year. And when I'm looking at the blue line and trying to figure out ways to balance it out, I don't really like what I see. Right now, I see Riley with Brody and then Klingberg with Jake McCabe. And now you're leaning still on Mark Giordano to give you minutes with Timothy Liljegren. Like, they feel thin.
Yeah. No, they are thin for sure. And I can tell you, if Mark Giordano's coming back, it will be solely on, you know, you're not going to see him playing 20 minutes most nights.
Hell
Okay. That's
no.
not happening.
Hell
So
no.
whether or not, you want to find a way to bring him back and play 50 or 60 games, many nights off, I don't even envision him being a starter in the playoffs if he decides to come back and play another year. So that that blue line needs help. No question about it. But again, how much of a rush are you in? Do you trade Brody out and get a bigger defenseman, younger defenseman,
Yes.
a prospect? There's value in Brody uh, to move him. Teams need help on the blue line desperately. So just the sake that you want a bigger body than Brody's, that's out there for sure. But like I said, this blue line should be good enough to help you make the playoffs, but not a blue line that can help you win in the playoffs.
No, dude, they're a regular season blue line.
You know,
Like it's as regular
yeah,
season a blue line as it gets. Klingberg,
yeah,
and Riley is obviously turned himself into a playoff performer, but I just mean like you got a bunch of offensive guys, and yeah, some guys at
you know,
the getting closer to the end of their careers. I after seeing what Vegas had on their blue line, and of course Toronto's not going to transform their entire decor, like that's not going to happen.
yeah,
But yeah, compare what they have to Vegas right now. And
no, it's not even close.
yeah,
Not even
I
close.
know. That's what I mean. Is this? There's got to be some
Yeah,
type of shift here. I don't know if you
you
can
know,
leave all that work to this season, where you go. We're doing Nylander in season.
listen,
We're doing our blue line in
just
season.
in the meantime, just get, Samsonov will probably sign a short-term deal. I
Hmm.
don't see this thing getting played out in arbitration. You'll probably see him on a 2-year deal,
Hmm.
low threes.
Yeah.
You know, just solidify that a little bit. You're going to probably have to give up an asset to move Matt Murray, unfortunately, for watch that scenario again. But
Hmm.
you can't eat that contract next year. So you can work around the blue line for now.
All right. Hey, Kipper. Thanks for making time today, buddy.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Have a great one.
See you, pal. There he goes, Nick Kypreos, host of Real Kyper Bourne.